Hey Shafiq, I'm very happy to have that conversation with you. We ended up chatting 2 weeks ago about a topic that we both really like, and what a perfect conversation to kick off the week with. But before we talk about real time, can you share a little bit of your background?
Cool. Thank you, Irina, for having me. My name is Shafiq. I'm based out of Tampa, Florida, and I lead the workforce and quality management functions for the sales teams at Autodesk. So we handle workforce management. That's your traditional WFM function of scheduling, forecasting, planning, time off planning, and performance tracking. And then on the quality management side, we review calls, we review chats, and we help improve the quality of the interactions that our reps are having with Autodesk customers.
But that's a very interesting combination of tasks. I have usually seen all sorts of combos like um, business reporting or BA side of things, reporting and workforce management, but knowledge management and WFM is usually something that I don't think I have stumbled on. So tell me a little bit more about this.
Yeah, so I don't have knowledge management, I have quality management.
Quality, I'm sorry
Yeah,
about that.
no, you're
Yes,
good. Yeah.
quality.
So yeah, on the quality side, so it's new. We recently launched it for our sales teams less than a year ago, and it's just something I had experience with, and I saw value in having for our operations. So I kind of pushed for us to establish that function in order to help improve the quality of the conversations our reps are having. At the end, workforce management and quality go hand in hand. Workforce is focused on maximizing the volume of the interactions, so helping our teams do more things faster. And then quality is focused on maximizing the quality of the interactions that our reps are having with customers, which in turn improves sales, customer satisfaction, customer loyalty, and so on. And in order to do that, we focus on all of those calls, chats that the reps have, and find improvement opportunities to help them continuously improve the quality of those interactions.
I love that, and so important. As you mentioned, I find that often from workforce management perspective, we solely focus on the numbers and on the volumes and on the metrics, but not necessarily about the substance of the actual interactions. And I always say, like, every single thing that we do have value, have cost for the customers and benefit for the customers. So unless you know exactly what's in that interactions, you're just doing some sort of exercise on an Excel or on any other tool. So love to hear that perspective. But to bring you back to the topic that we previously discussed, and you have some very cool things to share with us today, tell me, what do you think of when I mentioned the concept of real-time management?
Yep. So I have experience with workforce management here at Autodesk as well as at Coca-Cola, which is the company I used to work for before Autodesk. Coca-Cola, as you can imagine, had a giant contact center with operations across thousands and thousands of daily calls, tens of thousands of daily calls. So we had a large workforce management team that had all levels of workforce management, from senior analysts doing forecasting, planning, staffing plans, tracking attrition, and things like that, to the intraday managers who are tracking live the queues, the agent adherence, and so on. I see the value across the board of the entire workforce management offering. However, I believe that the value of the intraday and the live tracking of what's happening is low compared to all of the other things that workforce management does. The reason for that is the whole idea of having a workforce management function in a contact center organization is to make sure that everybody is disciplined enough in order to maximize the customer experience. People call, they don't wait too long in order to get answered. Not many of them abandon. When people are trying to reach out through chat, or if they open cases, or if they send emails, that all of those inbound interactions coming from customers are handled in a timely fashion and in a disciplined fashion. When we do intraday, it often, and I've seen this happen, becomes a workforce management is tracking that. Just do whatever you need to do, and if workforce management reaches out or whatever, then let's get back to the discipline that we're supposed to have. What I prefer is looking at historical performance at the daily level. We, from a workforce management standpoint, would look at how we did yesterday, would identify all of the things that helped us do well, and would identify all of the things that impacted us negatively. Out of those things that impacted us negatively, if there are agent adherence issues, if there are unexpected call spikes that we couldn't have reacted to that fast, or if there are things that are in general within our control and we identify that there's patterns of specific reps or specific managers doing things that they can improve, we improve them through that visibility that everybody gets of this is what happened yesterday, this is what happened last week, and it's continuous. People will notice patterns. If it's always the same people negatively impacting us, I would rather them see it that way and then improve it rather than have a workforce analyst continuously looking at a queue, continuously looking at agent adherence, and then pinging people saying, do this, do that. Because then it becomes, the whole organization becomes reliant on WFM doing that intraday instead of being responsible for what did we do yesterday that we shouldn't have done in order to maximize performance today.
And I love that you're saying that and how you describe it. And I can say that throughout my career, this is one thing that almost in every single organization I stumble on. And I'm going to throw you off that argument towards you to tell me how you feel about it. Is real-time departments or workforce management who has the real-time under them is saying to me, well, that's exactly what a real-time analyst or intraday specialist should be doing. They should be reacting immediately. That's why the headline is real-time. So what's the purpose of looking at yesterday if something is happening right now and you're not reacting on it? Yeah. So what's your view on this?
That's a great point. And today the job exists as you explained it and as people have shared with you. People are like, my job is intraday analyst, live monitoring, and that's what I'm doing. I'm looking at the queues, I'm looking at the reps, and then when I see things that need to be changed, I'm changing them live. I don't see the impact of that in terms of actually helping with answer rate or helping with other things as big as the impact of getting everybody aligned on what we should be doing from the first place and helping with that long term. The intraday to me is a role that one, yes, it's interesting and you are trying to help answer it as much as you can live, but two, it can get boring pretty quick for the person who has that role because once you're doing it today, tomorrow, a week from now, 3 months from now, eventually you start getting bored of such admin type of work. And as you get bored, your performance goes down. So you start missing stuff, and the impact that you're having in terms of trying to help right now decreases. So that's the first thing. The other thing is the most impact you can have is marginal compared to if we're doing continuous push for alignment with the managers and the reps on a daily basis. This is how we did yesterday. This is how we did last week. This is what we can do to improve the situation. The impact of that, we're talking a lot more percentage points, a lot more impact than the intraday. And lastly, the idea of changing queues and changing schedules is so transactional and so task oriented. It is something that can be easily predicted, and it is something that very soon AI will do, where the WFM tools that are being sold today, whether it's Variant, Calabrio, Genesis, Nice, all of the tools out there, they will start including solutions where you tell it, optimize this based on these events, and it would do that. And that's basically the role of today, an intraday workforce analyst who's going into queues, changing things, or going into the schedules and moving the break from now to 30 minutes later.
I really like this point, and my personal issue with changing cues and skills and everything all the time is sometimes it's needed. I have certainly learned the hard way exactly doing that, that for me, the job of a real-time analyst is much more to look at what's currently happening and start analyzing based on, as you said, historical data, but also current situation. What would be the impact if we continue this way tomorrow, the day after, end of the week, next week, and so on? Because what usually happens is you have somebody who works in real-time department and they're doing frantic changes because we have 10 calls waiting in the queue. Then we're quickly moving skills, adding skills. Then we forget that we've done that exercise. Then we're not looking at the other intervals. Then we're screwing up everything that we need to happen in next half an hour or 1 hour or so on. And in the end, you only focus on right now, what you can do, but you lose sight of what's going to happen like next day or the day after or even end of this day.
Yep.
So for me, it's a very great topic and up for debate. I feel like this is one that people tend to fight very passionately about. And I personally still find it very hard to convince a lot of people that the job of real-time analysts is so important, but it's much more analytical to understand and focus on trends and take the business value and advise the forecasting team, advise the scheduling team rather than you move here, come back, do that, swap this, swap that. So I'm very fascinated about this. And when we talk offline, you told me something that was very interesting for me, and it was your current approach with your current team. Can you walk us a little bit through that experience? Do you guys make any changes right now, or can you tell me your journey?
So yeah, that's a great point, and yeah, as of right now, the role is still valuable. So I want to make sure that that's clear. The intraday analyst role is still valuable, and I still see value in that role, specifically in giant contact centers. So I'm talking airlines, insurance companies, companies that are getting tens of thousands of calls and chats per hour because of the millions and millions of people out there that are reaching out to them. In those situations, definitely an intraday manager is required because a spike in their situation means 2,000 calls. It's not a spike in maybe our situation where it means 100 or 200 extra calls. So in terms of our approach, we focus on the making sure that everybody is aligned on what it is that we're trying to do. Workforce management was established to help our teams do more things faster. So we know that the more volume of interactions they have, the more sales they're going to generate. That's the focus, and that's what we will maintain as the focus. Everything else around the how, which is workforce management, is additional metrics that directly link to that volume that we're looking to maximize. So when we establish that clarity and that alignment with the managers, the reps, and the leadership that we work with, everybody knows what we're trying to achieve and everybody focuses on that. On our side, we focus on those other metrics that link to the maximization of the volume. Those other metrics would include the highest answer rate for the hotlines, because the more calls we answer, the more interactions our reps are having. Most maximizing outbound call volume and outbound email volume, because we know that the more outbound activity, the more sales will be generated correlating with that volume. So we don't try to pull the stakeholders that we work with into all of the WFM specific metrics, because at the end we know they don't care as much about those metrics than what they care about, which is their metrics.
Yeah.
So when we align with all of them and then we start showing them how WFM performance directly links up with the performance that they care about, and then we start sharing it with them in a frequent basis, daily, weekly, monthly, they start seeing the things that when we're sharing are repetitive, the things that we look at because we know it correlates. And then we don't have to keep telling them all the time because they know what to expect. And that, to me, is success, when your stakeholders already know what you are going to tell them because they've seen it many times, they're aligned with it, and you know they're already working to do it the way you're telling them they should be doing it because they see value in it already. Rather than sitting on the side as a WFM function and pinging people and telling them, this rep is not adhering to the schedule right now, this rep is late 20 minutes on this, or this rep was late this morning. We look for patterns. So if a rep is late 5 minutes, 10 minutes, even 20 minutes, if it's a one-time thing, we don't even bring it up because we don't want to be the team that is bringing up every single thing that is negatively impacting performance. We bring up patterns because when you address patterns, the impact is much bigger than when you are on top of people and addressing every single instance of something that negatively impacted performance. And same thing for coverage when it is decreased. If somebody asks for a specific appointment, a medical appointment or something, we would never go and say, can you do that during your lunch or whatever? You still get your lunch and you get an extra hour or two or whatever time you need for that medical appointment. Because we're not in the business of trying to maximize coverage at whatever cost. We're in the business of keeping our people productive and doing the most that they can without feeling like we're out there micromanaging them.
Such an important lesson, and thank you so much for describing it so well. And while you were talking, I was thinking, okay, how can I kind of poke him to see if he's gonna mention something about do or react if we have a one-time offender, as we like to call them. And for me, this is why we have such a bad fame. This is why real-time analysts are notorious that, amongst operations as micromanaging agents. This is not their job. If anyone is listening to us right now, that's not the job of real-time analysts. That's not the job of WFM departments to stop people, to harass them, to make sure that it's known that they have done something wrong. No, we need to secure that we're there for customers, but equally so, we need to be there to make sure that employees are working in a healthy environment. And everything can happen. Sometimes you feel off. Sometimes you're distracted. We just talked before we kicked off the recording that I feel rather bad because my allergy is draining me. So I actually feel my brain kind of going blank at the moment.
Yeah.
So just imagine that you're on the phone and you have to be talking with the new customers all the time, every fourth minute or fifth minute. And then you need to be sharp. And then you go in a break and you make a deviation of 20 seconds and somebody is on you. It's just, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy to have conversations with WFMers out there who actually share the same view on this topic. And we start mature from going after agents, then to basically observe patterns and only then check how can we help you to pull you back to our mission to be there for customers. Is there something that's bothering you? Can we support you in some way? And this is something that you mentioned offline before our recording. And I applaud you for having that approach currently in your organization, because in a lot of places it can get very toxic. And I think, I don't know about you, I myself work with WFM departments that can get pushed by operations to kind of highlight every single bad behavior, which is not really bad. We're just humans.
Yep. And it's 2024. People want to work the way they want to work. People expect a lot of flexibility. People expect minimum standards in terms of a work environment that they're working in. So we have to always be mindful of that. And when instances happen that are individual instances, as much as we may feel the urge to be like, okay, so this rep took 20 minutes, that wasn't planned, and that negatively impacted us, before we go and act on that, whether it's communicated to their manager or taking some action on it. First, let's go look at that rep the past 15 days, the past month. Is this a pattern behavior or is this a one-time thing? If it's a pattern behavior, then yes, we action it to make sure that we're trying to stop it. If it's a one-time thing, no matter how big the impact is to the performance, it's better. We are better off as an organization letting that go and not even mentioning it, because the long-term benefit of that is that rep noticing, okay, I did this and nobody said anything. Either they didn't notice it or they noticed it and they thought it's not worth mentioning it to me because they know I'm a high performer. People notice these things, and you want people to see that you're not out there trying to micromanage them or trying to ding them for stuff. You're out there trying to help the organization. And I think it's very important that people don't lose sight of that, and that whenever they feel the urge to action something, that they dig a little deeper before they take action on it.
Great points. And I'm just curious about one final thing before we wrap
Yeah.
up the recording. When you mentioned that we need to be checking patterns, what is your personal opinion? Say, for example, that you notice that there is something that has to be addressed with the rep or with the employee. Who needs to do that? Do you send that information to the team lead, or the intraday analyst specialist should bring it up to the person and directly have a chat and say, okay, what's going on? Can I help you? Or
Yep.
who is responsible for that?
So in general, it's the employee's manager. Now, before it even gets to that, we need to ensure that we have proper reporting, proper analytics, and proper dashboards that everybody has access to. This data that workforce management is analyzing, it needs to be available to the managers and to the reps directly, where the reps can see it for themselves. So, and the reps should be aware that they have access to this data, as well as the managers. Everybody should be encouraged to look at it every now and then, whether it's daily, weekly, or whatever frequency works best for them. Workforce management obviously is going to look at it daily. Everybody else, whatever works for them. When it is something that does need to be addressed, it should be from workforce management communicating with the manager. This is a pattern. This is how this pattern is negatively impacting our business. Can you please help us address it? And then you leave it to that. That's my preferred approach.
Okay, that's interesting because I was thinking about it, and my preferred approach would be probably the opposite for one reason. I I have experienced it, and I bet you have as well, how easy it is to influence negatively employees and how easy it is to kind of create an environment that we are after them to catch them into something. Yep. So for me, I feel like if you address something directly to them, you give them the chance to kind of get better or to address their concern before they get that feedback from their manager, simply because sometimes they can get worried that this is coming from the manager. They might be worried that they're going to be actioned in a little bit more serious way, or this is going to impact their bonus, or what have you. So maybe my preferred approach would be like, if you want to create that relationship, try to do it directly. And if it doesn't work, send it over or just involve the manager as well.
Yep, that's an approach I've seen in other WFM teams as well, where WFM reaches out directly to the reps. I see that as it's a double-edged sword. That you're right. You build the relationship, you create that trust. However, is it a sustainable and scalable process? Can WFM do it with hundreds of reps? Also, the other thing that's important to keep in mind is whether it's the WFM analyst or WFM manager, none of us in WFM have that deep relationship with each rep like that rep would have with their manager, because it's their manager. They have a deeper relationship. They know each other across multiple aspects other than what just WFM covers. So when you make sure that everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing, and then you have a process, whether it's WFM reaching out to the rep or WFM reaching out to the managers, then the managers actioning things with the reps. Whatever that process is, it just needs to be sustainable and scalable. And lastly, the data piece is very important. When you reach out to someone to let them know that there is a pattern, in my mind, that person shouldn't be surprised that there is that pattern, because they have access to the same data and they would have seen that. So if it comes in as a surprise, that means the expectation wasn't set properly at the beginning, and the dashboards and reports were communicated at the beginning properly for the rep to know you can track your performance here, and you would notice if there's patterns, if you haven't noticed them in your own behavior, as in being late 10 minutes 3 times a week, or logging out 15 minutes early twice a week. in general on Friday and Wednesday or whatever that is, people should have enough self-awareness to notice patterns within their behaviors. And if they don't, they should at the very least have access to the reports and dashboards that would display those patterns to them if those patterns exist.
Great points once again. And I think you mentioned so many valuable action points for WFMers out there, for real-time analysts or for operations even. And those are the things that we sometimes are overloaded with tasks to do on the day, that we try to do everything quickly and it becomes quick and messy. So I love that you spend so much time elaborating on every one of these points, and I think it can be extremely helpful for all of the organizations out there. So before we wrap up, any final words of advice?
Oh, thank you so much for everything you're doing, Irina. Thank you for having me on this podcast. Thank you for all the great posts that you put in on LinkedIn. Always valuable information. I love reading them. I love interacting with you and all of the people who engage with your posts. So please keep doing what you're doing. It's very valuable to myself, the workforce management community out there, and in general the contact center operations community out there. I think it's great that we have a LinkedIn community out there with people like yourself who are actively engaging and posting great content. So thank you.
Thank you so much for the kind words. And likewise, thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And you're sharing so many valuable insights that I actually will say that please follow Shafiq on LinkedIn, because he's doing absolutely amazing. And these are things and thoughts that you absolutely need to read, because there's always something to learn. So thank you so much. And thanks for agreeing to be here with me today. And we'll meet again for another one.
Sounds good. Thank you, Irina.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good one.